get back to the rug, right? Like, all right, if you buy a rug and you want to buy a $10 rug and not the $100 rug, whatever, and it rips and it gets crappy, you throw it out. It's just a rug, no big deal. But when you're putting it in your body, my gosh, we talked about this, it becomes your blood. It goes through your veins. It becomes your cells. It becomes you. Use something that's going to be, that has scientific studies, clinical studies, no animal testing, a legitimate company that's out there really doing the research. Guys like you who are saying, I use this stuff, and it works and it's quality and it's the real deal. My name is Jon Levine, and I'm a certified health coach determined to help people reclaim health and happiness. My approach to health is compassion and looking at the whole person and understanding each person's unique set of health issues. I can and will help you reverse the chronic health issues you're dealing with. I hope you enjoy my show, the Hol Truth Podcast. Thank you for the support, and God bless you, my friends. Welcome, everyone, to the Hol Truth Podcast with Jon Levine, powered by Shaklee, creating healthier lives, natural, safe, and 100% guaranteed, and by Dean's Natural Food Markets with 5 locations in Ocean, Shrewsbury, Basking Ridge, Chester, and Metuchen. We have Eli Bremer. He is a former modern pentathlete who competed in the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing, China. He took the bronze medal in the 2008 World Cup final, won the gold at the 2007 Pan American Games, and is a repeat winner of the U.S. National Championship. And last, but certainly not least, he is the captain of the Shaklee Pure Performance team. And we are going to talk about quality nutrition, quality supplements, and how to weaponize them. And my man Eli has weaponized them really well in 2008. How you doing, by the way? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Had some technical difficulties, but it's all good. Sometimes you just have to roll with it, right?
That's right. I think we got it all worked out. So
I think so.
Hopefully this will work.
Sometimes it is what it is. You're looking good. Where are you, Colorado?
I'm in Colorado Springs, yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, we got to get you to visit New Jersey and come in studio next time.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
You know what? Before we even get into that, but pentathlon. For those who don't know about the pentathlon, what are the events in the pentathlon?
Well, if you don't know what the pentathlon is, you're part of the vast majority of Americans. So feel good about that. It's shooting, fencing, swimming, equestrian, show jumping, and running. And it's got a long history in the Olympics. It's actually the only sport that was created specifically to be competed in the Olympics. And the founder of the modern Olympics put it out there as sort of the ultimate versatile athlete test. So it's sort of you're testing endurance, strength, combat, mental agility, stuff like that. So it was kind of designed to be the all-around athlete.
You're burning a lot of calories.
You do burn, yeah. When I was training, it was probably about 5,000, 6,000 calories a day, yeah. That
is serious business. I've done some triathlons, and I want. I've never fenced, but I think I could take you in fencing. You want to compete?
Sure. Next time I'm in New Jersey, there you go.
Yeah, but I got something for you. You can use what you use. And I'm going to use, this is not just a regular podcast or some regular show. We have fun. We educate, we empower, but we entertain. So how you like this, baby? Go up against, hey, Mr. Olympian, go up against this, baby.
Yeah, so just tell me, who's your father?
Look at this. I mean, look, my God. Can I use that?
Yeah, I'll let you use that. I still think I like my chances.
No, I think you'd kick my ass bad. So that's a joke. I won't do it. Anyway, so you have a whole story. I love your story. We talked on the phone. I've heard we have mutual friends. And this is a shout out. Lorene Andes and Claire Broderick put this together. So I want to say thank you to them for putting us in touch. So food. What do you have? You have a mom that's got a PhD in nutrition or something? What's so good about food and quality food? Like, does it really make a difference? Is it really a big deal?
Yeah, it's funny. I was the kid who grew up going into school every day with whole wheat bread and stuff, and telling people, gee, you're not getting good food because you have white bread. And I got in trouble for that a few times. But yeah, my mom has a doctorate in human nutrition. She did a lot of her research on the impacts of the Western diet and the sort of the modified food diet that we now really know has caused a lot of harm in America today. So she was a leading researcher on that about 40 years ago, and so yeah, I grew up in a house where that was kind of a well-known phenomenon.
Did you at the time were you okay with that, or did you were you the boy and you're like, why don't I have
No,
Wonder Boy? You're all right
I
with
was
that?
not okay with that. I
You're
was
not
the
okay.
only kid in my school who had mung bean sandwich, which is disgusting.
My God.
And I would go to school, and so truth be told, I would kind of like I think I kind of belittle other kids' lunches just because I wanted to trade with them sometimes. Like,
That's
hey, I
funny.
got the healthier lunch, but I'll be the nice guy and trade with you just so I can get the what are the little like lunchable things or something that the kids are showing up with. So.
With my kids, I have 3 kids, and we're healthy. We're like your mom. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, because you know how it is. Like in I'd hate to say it, but like normal everyday life, people drink Gatorade and they're out this. My kids play sports, and you see all this stuff. And I try not to say anything. I don't like to be pushy. And then my kids, they have the mung bean sandwiches too, and it's like, and I'm like, and you can see the look on their face, and they're like I don't want it to backfire. So I guess maybe like the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule, where you want quality food, but let's not like go overboard where it's like, you know what? All those mung bean sandwiches, that's it. I'm done. I'm eating Twinkies for the rest of my life.
Well, now I got a 4-year-old son, and we feed him really healthy, and he's he loves his salmon burgers and avocados, and he did his first year of preschool this year, and they would have occasionally a parent would bring in these sugary snacks, and he'd be like, yeah, I want the fruit. So we're like, yes, we're doing something right here. I don't know how long that'll last for.
Go Struthers, right?
Yeah, that's right, Struthers.
I'm proud of you, Struthers. Go. You're a leader. We need that. So how did you use, okay, so we're going to talk about weaponizing food. Food is medicine, right? Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. You know that better than anyone. So how did you use food as a weapon for your performance? And then let's get into the supplements.
Well, I think it started. It was a long maturing process in me. I mean, I had a mom who understood nutrition very, very well. We had a big family garden. We'd garden a lot of food. So it wasn't like I ate food badly, but I had sort of a revelation over time as it pertained to sports and how food and nutrition interacts with the human body. And it started in high school when I was actually a pretty bad athlete as a kid. Truth be told, I was the youngest of 3 boys. It took me 3 attempts to join the swim team, and then finally got on the swim team. My brothers quit swimming. My parents, when I was 13, approached me and said, hey, you're pretty lousy at swimming. You're really not cut out to be an athlete, so we think you ought to quit sports and just focus on piano. And I renegotiated with them, and I said I want to quit piano and just focus on swimming. And so they said that's a really bad idea, but we'll enable it. And so anyway, fast forward a couple years later, I was swimming 11 times a week, and I kind of grew into my body a little bit, and I started becoming quite a good swimmer. And that was when actually it's also when I started getting introduced to Shackley, because a family I knew through a small group said, hey, you ought to start using our sports products. They'll help you with your sports. And I was 15 and thought I knew everything. So I said, yeah, I don't need this. One thing led to another. I finally had my mom take a look at it, and she said, yeah, I think you actually could use some sports products to help your training, which, I mean, I look back on it and think how stupid that was. I was swimming 5 hours a day. And, of course you're not going to survive on bread and water, And so I started using, Shackley really invented the first sophisticated set of sports products. So I started using their sports drink and then the recovery drink. And all of a sudden I was just like, wow, this really helps. And that was sort of the first lesson I learned about nutrition, was that, no kidding, it actually matters. And I think a lot of people don't ever get to that point of realizing what you put in your mouth has a direct impact on how your body functions.
Oh, and what age was this?
It's probably age 15, 16, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And up until that point, I was, again, I wasn't eating unhealthy. I just hadn't really internalized the significance of the idea that, again, your food directly relates to how your body performs. And, I look around today and I see a lot of people, I see what's in the grocery carts at the supermarket. And I think there's a lot of people that I don't think are looking at the chips and the sodas and the cookies and stuff like that they're putting in their cart and thinking that's about to become part of my body.
Becomes your blood.
It literally becomes your everything.
It becomes your blood. It goes through your veins.
Yeah. It's every cell in your body. Where do you think it came from? You ate it at some point.
Yeah. So are you walking around handing out mung bean sandwiches?
No, I ditched the mung bean sandwich thing. They're still disgusting.
Okay.
So, I grew up not liking avocados and Brussels sprouts, and now I love avocados and I love Brussels sprouts. I don't know what happened there, but the mung bean
it changes.
Sandwich,
it's weird, isn't it? It changes. I hated peas as a kid. I love peas now.
Yeah, it's really weird. So
no, but you were lucky though. You were lucky to have a mom that was like so ahead of her time, or I shouldn't even say ahead of her time, but she was so educated on what really works. So it's awesome.
Well, it's interesting veering wildly off topic here, if I may. We now know through a lot of writing and investigative journalism so my mom actually was almost denied her doctorate because she was saying that the American diet is probably really unhealthy, and she tested it in mice and proved that she could make mice obese by simply feeding them the American diet. And
oh wow,
and now if you look back, my dad's an attorney. He had to he threatened to sue her university over their attempt to withhold her doctorate because she had done all of her requirements, and they said, well, we don't like your conclusions that the American diet is bad for us.
They really tried to do that?
Absolutely. And if you look at what's happened over the last 30 to 40 years, there was a huge amount of money that came in from the food industry to basically say, hey, all this food that we're giving you, high sugar, low fat foods, are healthy for you. And so my mom and many others were, subjected to, not very fair treatment of their research because they said, well, wait a second, we're able to see that in mice, we're causing all sorts of health issues, and we can probably extrapolate and see that that'll happen in people. Well, you fast forward, 20, 30 years, and we see obesity, diabetes, spikes in diseases we've never seen before. So, so that was, it's sort of an interesting sidebar conversation there that, just because it's marketed well doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you.
No, I agree. And chronic disease seems to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's part of my job as a health coach and starting this podcast, the Hol Truth Podcast, is to have people on like you and other people on to educate and and that's not even a sidebar thing. That's important. People need to know that because that's the truth and what really works, food and lifestyle changes. And educate and inspire people to make these changes, and that's what I'm trying to do, and goof around a little bit, and bring out my lightsaber. Other than that, so all right, go on. So the rest of the story is great. So I know there was another issue you had. So
yeah, so that was there were sort of three phases of my coming to an understanding about how we utilize food in our bodies, and really it started with me on athletics, and now I go around and I talk to people about healthy living. So the next step came. I went to the Air Force Academy. It was a 2-sport letterman there, and then graduated, had the opportunity to go start training full-time for my sport. And that's when I should have seen huge advances. I was expecting everything to start going well because I was finally getting enough sleep. I wasn't in school. I was training full-time and getting, had access to pretty good food at the dining hall at the Olympic Training Center. And then I just wound up getting more and more fatigued, couldn't overcome it, got a bunch of tests done and discovered that I was severely anemic. And that's actually not uncommon for runners at altitude. I was training at 6,400 feet and running I was probably at the time running only about 40 miles a week. But you tend to break up the red blood cells in your feet. It's called heel strike anemia. It's now a known syndrome. And it doesn't impact you if you can absorb iron correctly. And I was not absorbing enough iron through my diet. So I started supplementing. There were a lot of concerns about tainted products, and I was under a very strict drug testing regimen. So I tried sort of a big box store supplement, and I was taking somewhere around 15, 16 times the RDA for iron, and I couldn't get my iron up. And I'd also tried I ate liver and onions 5 days a week. I was eating spinach all the time. I actually kind of like spinach, and did all this stuff, couldn't get my iron up. And then it was my mom who I was talking to her about this. And this is going on for a number of months. And I said, I'm super frustrated. I can't figure out what's going on. And she said, well, we ought to take a look at Shaklee because they make pretty good supplements. And I said, well, what difference does it make? I'm taking 15 or 16 times the RDA for iron. And she said, actually, there's several different formulations of iron, and our bodies don't interact with them all in the same way. And different types of nutrients and different types of minerals absorb differently based on the structure of them and the quality of them. So to make a long story short, I tried Shaklee's Iron Plus C product, and within, I don't know, 6 weeks or 8 weeks, my anemia cleared up, and it all had to do with an issue of being able to ingest them properly. So that was sort of my second revelation about nutrition, was that the first revelation was that nutrition actually matters. Like, no kidding, what you're putting into your body becomes who you are. The second was that quality matters. And just because you ingest a carbohydrate, 150 calories of Coca-Cola is very different. It's a different type of carbohydrate than, let's say, 150 calories of cauliflower or 150 calories of oatmeal. So they're all carbohydrate, right?
Yep.
But they function differently in our bodies.
Yeah, a calorie is not a calorie. People say a calorie is a calorie.
No,
that's not true. Yeah, there's good calories and there's bad calories.
And how our body interacts with them, it's very profound what different foods do to our bodies. And so that got me thinking, it got me researching to say, wait a second, we look at the calorie count in a lot of states, and I agree with this. They're putting the calorie count on restaurant menus. If you go to a restaurant, it is required to say what it is.
Right.
But that only tells part of the story. It doesn't say what the calories are. And then you look and say, okay, this many calories of carbs and this many of protein and this many of fat. Right. But that doesn't tell the story. A trans fat's very different from an unsaturated fat. You
got it. Quality supplements, quality everything, to be honest with you. And when you're talking about your health, to me, like, you can get a rug. No offense against people who sell rugs, but you can get a crappy rug, and if the rug is rips and gets dirty, and it's just a rug. But when it comes to your health, I mean, health is everything. If you don't have your health, you're in trouble. So the food that you put in your body, the supplements that you put in your body, like the supplements that you put in your body. And here's the thing that's awesome. You were taking Shaklee products before you were part of the Shaklee Pure Performance team, before you were captain of that team. Your mom knew about them. They've been around since 1956. So this is not like, let's call it like it is. There's some athletes out there who they're drinking Gatorade, and I'm the honest guy. I'm going to say the stuff that people don't want to hear. Are you really drinking Gatorade? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But there's some athletes that are just doing stuff and they're getting paid and they're not taking the stuff. You're a little bit different. And that's what I like about it. So you took the Iron Plus C, is that what it was?
Yeah, the Iron Plus C. And so actually going back to high school, my parents were really big on teaching responsibility. So when I say I had to get Shaklee's, at the time it was called Performance, was their sports drink, and Physique was the post-workout recovery drink, I bought those myself. I had to teach swim lessons. I taught private riding lessons, and my parents didn't buy that stuff for me. I started with Shaklee 20 something years ago, purchasing their products.
Oh yeah.
Through, paying for it with work that I was doing in high school.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah. And so, and now 20 something years later, I'm, a spokesman and consultant to the company, and I get to work with all these Olympians. But yeah, that's a great question to ask, is when you see an athlete endorsing a product, do they believe in it and do they use it? Because to be honest with you, and I don't begrudge this to athlete endorsers, because you have to make money, right?
Sure.
But the vast majority of athlete endorsements are I remember there was an ad, not to pick on anyone in particular, but there was an ad with, I think it was LeBron James driving a Kia. Now, let's be honest. If you're making as
Oh,
much money, would you drive a Kia?
I think Christian, the engineer, drives the Kia, but other than that, no, I don't know.
I mean, nothing against Kias, but I mean, if you're making a couple $1 million a month or whatever that is, I'm just gonna bet that maybe you're driving a Ferrari or something.
I would tend to say yes. You're probably right.
Yeah.
But you could do it in a way like you did it, right? There's a way to do it. Like, you can take the products, and if you really become a believer, and then you can get paid to be a sponsor. That's a ethical, moral way of making money, and working for a company that is beyond legitimate. A company that started years and years ago. So there's a way to do it. You can still make money, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's unethical for an athlete to use their profile to help a company sell products. I don't. This is not to say that it's. I think the average person knows LeBron James probably doesn't drive a small Kia to work every day. Like I don't think he's. But so what are they doing it for? It's to raise awareness and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and so again, I don't think there's anything in that case unethical about it whatsoever. But ask yourself a question. I've had friends that were spokesmen for fast food restaurants, and they might occasionally eat there, but be honest, like, do you really think these top tier Olympians are eating at a sandwich shop every day for lunch, or do you think they're eating organic foods that they're buying and preparing at home?
You tell me. What were the other athletes eating when you were around those athletes?
They're definitely eating much healthier than that. So, but again, I think the average consumer knows that. So it's sort of a buyer beware deal. One of the things I like with Shackley is that we've worked with about 130 Olympians. We had 13 gold medalists in the last Summer Olympics that we were working with, and we actually have someone full time with the company, another Olympian who his entire job is basically coordinating with those athletes, getting them their products when they freak out because they're leaving for Budapest in a week and they've run out of their sports drink and they've run out of vitamins. He makes sure that they get exactly what they need on time so they can use them. So last year we sent out about $350,000 of products to Olympians.
What Olympians are we talking about? What are some of the athletes?
You can go to athletes.shackley.com and it lists all of our current athletes. So we've had honestly, we don't really work with a lot of athletes that you would have heard of unless you're in that sport, because again, our model is we don't pay athletes to say that they like our products. We will work with athletes that need our nutritional help and that that can use our products to improve their performance. So again, the really top tier athletes, I don't begrudge this to them, but they can make a ton of money by lending their name to a product to raise brand awareness. That's just not what Shackley does. We've taken the path of saying our products are ultra pure. They're extremely high quality. They help athletes, win Olympic medals. And again, the average consumer is not going to go win an Olympic gold medal. They're not trying to. They're trying to win the gold medal of life, which is to live a long, healthy life and have lots of life in your years. Have years in your life and life in your years.
You know how much damn Gatorade I drank as a kid? I'm blaming Michael. I am blaming Michael Jordan. I was a basketball, baseball, football guy. I love basketball, even though I'm only 5'11" and a half. I love basketball. Do you know how much damn Gatorade I pounded? Because Michael Jordan, I was brainwashed from Michael Jordan, just drinking, be like Mike. And I'm like, I got it. And I wasn't even thinking. It was just Gatorade. But then you start asking questions, right?
Yeah, you have a lot of food coloring in your system now.
I've detoxed.
Okay, good for you.
I let my liver do its job. So if you remove, replace, and then eventually you put back the good stuff, like the spinach, your body will do its job. So that was a long time ago.
That is very true, actually. Our bodies are so unbelievably resilient. And it's amazing to watch people who make a lifestyle transition and go from an unhealthy lifestyle and unhealthy diet to healthy. And you see it everywhere. You see it in their body comp. You see it in their complexion. You see it in their attitude. It's pretty amazing.
It is, and you know what? It's all out there. You just have to use your eyes. You may not see it on mainstream media, but and hey, even on this podcast, I've had many people reverse their diseases, reverse chronic disease through diet, through exercise, and just taking care of themselves. And just use your eyes. You see it. You see what works.
And we see it in every area. I've got my son's now 4 years old, and it's interesting. I obviously as a parent, you don't want to be judgmental about other parents. I mean, because gosh, you don't want everybody to see everything that goes on in your life. But it's interesting to watch kids eat tremendous amounts of refined sugar, and then they throw a temper tantrum, and their parents are trying to figure out what caused the temper tantrum. And it's like saying, if you gave a kid a bunch of caffeine and they were wired, you'd totally get it. And yet we pump these kids full of sugar, and then they become insulin resistant and they get diabetes. This is not an unknown problem. It causes behavioral problems. It causes problems with them sleeping. It causes them to get sick more. It causes all sorts of long-term health problems. So it's fascinating to see and sad to see, quite frankly, what's happening with our young people in America today. My son had a lot of medical issues when he was born. He almost died at childbirth. He was 1.5 pounds. And his prognosis is very, very good now. He was given a 25% chance of dying the day he was born. But what's really sad is the kids in his preschool class, statistically speaking, have about a 1/3 chance of being diabetic by the time they graduate high school. And that is a nearly 100% preventable syndrome with diet.
Yeah. So obviously diet, Struthers was able to, you feed him well, and that's obviously helped his body. But that's something I'm actually real passionate. I love kids. I coach my kids' sports, so I do see it a lot. And I want to make sure that I'm helpful, and that you and I, Eli, together are helpful. So I always want to present this in a very sensitive way. It is not your fault. For anyone listening, for anyone watching, seriously, it's not your fault. And you can't eat kale and exercise all day, and we're not. It's
not realistic.
Yeah, we're not saying that. Hey, honestly, Eli, we talked a couple weeks ago, and your son had a smoothie, right? Not a he had his tonsils out. He was drinking. He had a what was it?
He got some sort of milkshake, and I was like, I can't believe we're talking about doing a health podcast, and my son's having his first ever fast food milkshake.
That's right. You're like, hold on one second. I'm like, what's going on back there? You're like, I'm giving my son a Frosty.
I was driving through the Sonic or something, or Chick-fil-A. I don't remember.
But that's to my point, right? So it's just like you can't. You go crazy. We're not saying to do that. Have your smoothie, have your Frosty. Eat your. Have a little Gatorade. Don't make. But try not to make it a habit, right? In general, there's certain foods that are clearly support your body and support health. Clearly, and certain foods that will take you in the other direction. So I do see it a lot on the ball fields. I have kids. I have smaller kids. I don't say anything because I don't want, usually tell someone something, and usually if you tell them you should drink coconut water, or why are you doing this? They're just going to get mad, and it's not going to work. And that's not what my job is. That's not what I'm trying to do. That's not what we're trying to do. So, for those listening, there's certain other things that you can put in your body. All right. So instead of Gatorade, let's flip the script here. Coconut water. I love coconut water. Coconut water is a natural electrolyte. If you want to go to Shaklee products, honestly, there's the Hydrate, right? There's certain products that are Shaklee, and I'm not even pushing Shaklee. I'm just being sincere and saying, there's healthier options to put in your body. And this stuff is tested. There's clinical studies. They're out in Pleasantville? Pleasanton, and there's scientists on board, research, and they're the real deal. Put the stuff in your body that's going to support you. Let's not get to the point where everyone's so sick.
Yeah, and it's John, when I was at the Air Force Academy, my swim coach there was Casey Converse, who was the first man to break 15 minutes in the mile in swimming. He's a swimming legend. Went to the Olympics in swimming. And I remember on the pool deck one day, the Air Force Academy is a very, very difficult setup. You're taking 20 credits a semester of engineering and stuff, and it's a brutal program. And he pulled us aside on the deck one day and said, guys, every day you can find an excuse to not swim hard. But what I need you to do is find an excuse to swim hard. Look for the excuse to train hard any given day. And I think that's how I approach food is you're not always going to be able to, I mean, sometimes, you just don't have a choice. Your son's tonsils and adenoids come out. You're like, I got to get him the milkshake. Okay. But the more you look for an excuse to eat healthy food and you sit down at the restaurant and you see that there's some more healthy options and some less healthy, and you say, you know what, today I'm going to choose to do a more healthy option. So reward yourself for making the right choices. And I'm with you. I don't want to be judgmental of other people. I know that when you go talk to other people and say, gee, this is not healthy, it kind of backfires. But what winds up happening is that, inevitably, if you're living a healthy life, people can see it. They see it in your complexion. They see it in everything about you. And then people are going to come to you and say, okay, what the heck? What are you doing? Because most of society lives in a sleep deprived, caffeinated, high, sick environment, right? And it's hurting us as a society, and it's hurting us as individuals.
It is, but we can turn it around to be positive. I think people are. I honestly do feel that people are waking up a little bit. And that's the beauty of some social media. It can be used productively to put out the stuff that is quality and the stuff that works and the stuff that's supportive.
You opened this up by saying we talk about weaponization. So I do want to hit on that and how I came up with that term, weaponizing nutrition. Did you patent that term? No, I'm not going to. You can. I do think I came up with, but I didn't hear it before I started using it, but I'm sure other people have used it.
No, I love it. It was awesome. I love it. When you said it, I'm like, that's it. Weaponizing nutrition.
So I learned this concept as I broke my foot going into the 2004 Olympics, and so I couldn't even go to trials then. And then I was going to be 30 years old at the 2008 Olympics, so I knew I had to really. I was sacrificing a lot to compete that late in life, because you're foregoing starting your professional career and being a responsible adult. So I decided I wanted to really just go all in and be able to look back and say I had no regrets. And so I started auditing my life and saying everything has to be. It can't just be good, and it can't just be good enough. It has to be as close to perfection as possible. And that's when I started studying nutrition more and saying, okay, instead of just, getting good nutrition. And, when I was swimming in high school and swimming 5 hours a day, eating good food, okay, that was it was a good idea. And then when I had an anemia deficiency, it was, okay, I'll take a quality supplement that helps me deal with that. I said, what if instead of it being a defensive move, it became an offensive move? And I started paying attention to when I was eating, being very precise about the quality of food, the exact quantity, making sure I was eating enough relative to the training, that instead of waiting 30 minutes or 45 minutes after a hard workout to get a recovery shake in, I'd bring it to the workout with me. And that's where I came up with this concept of use nutrition as a weapon, because when you're working out, you're tearing your body down, and It's the nutrition that actually rebuilds it. So that's where I came up with that doctrine, and I became one of the fastest short distance run swimmers in the world ever. Largely, I think, thankful to a very difficult training regimen that was made only possible because I was using nutrition properly.
What were some of the supplements that you were taking?
I was taking the multivitamins from Shackley. I've had to be on iron, for 15 years or whatever it's been since. And those were sort of my foundational ones. And then I sort of jokingly tell people, I think I hold the world record for how much of the Shackley, we used to call it Performance. It's been rebranded, called Hydrate Plus. Hydrate Plus now. I don't know how many tens of thousands of gallons of that stuff I've drunk. I mean, I'd be drinking a gallon or two of that a day. And then the Physique, which is now the Build Plus. Again, I'd had so much of that stuff. So those are my main foundational products. And then occasionally I get vitamin D deficient. We were getting blood tests pretty frequently, so I'd take vitamin D when that happened. When I traveled, I would take immune boosters, things like that, because when you're on the edge, at that point in my life, I was probably running an average of 60 to 65 miles a week and swimming 20 miles a week at the same time. And your body's just physically on the edge. So anytime I would travel, I would take immune boosters. I'd take vitamin C, just to give myself that little edge.
Yeah, the other important thing I want to add is that you're saying that you weaponized nutrition with your supplements, Shackley supplements, because you only wanted the best. And listen, I'm going to give you a plug here. To be an Olympian, you need to think like that. You need to put the best in your body. And some supplements out there, and let's just say it's the big box store, right? They're not regulated. There's no studies on this stuff. It's almost like, freedom to just put whatever they want in these and sell it in these stores. And to me, that's nuts, because I have a friend, and if he listens to this, he's probably going to kill me, but he takes like stuff from Costco, and I'm like, you don't even know what's in there. Like, God knows what's in there, fillers and all sorts of junk.
Yep.
And again, I get back to the rug, right? Like, all right, if you buy a rug and you want to buy a $10 rug and not the $100 rug, whatever, and it rips and it gets crappy, you throw it out. It's just a rug, no big deal. But when you're putting it in your body, my gosh, we talked about this, it becomes your blood. It goes through your veins. It becomes your cells. It becomes you. Use something that's going to be, that has scientific studies, clinical studies, no animal testing, a legitimate company that's out there really doing the research, guys like you who are saying, I use this stuff, and it works and it's quality and it's the real deal. I don't know, it boggles my mind why you take that.
Close to home to where you are, go Google what's been going on in New York with lawsuits around, there were 4 companies the state of New York went after for putting wheat fillers into supplements. And these are all major corporations that everybody who's listening will hear of. Go Google it. You don't have to. I always tell people, don't trust what I tell you.
Yeah, me too.
You can independently verify it. 80% of protein powders on the market are considered to be contaminated right now. And these are not things that you're buying on Amazon. First of all, don't ever buy anything in the supplement area on Amazon, because this is a known issue, the number of counterfeits that are out there. And, like people say, I'm going to go buy Shackley on Amazon. Don't. Shackley's not sold on Amazon. People are,
right,
from what we can tell, probably taking old canisters, or the labels are being copied, and it's not a legal way that this is being sold. So I recommend to people, regardless of the brand, I wouldn't buy anything online. I do your due diligence. Go read about the contamination. Read about which big box stores have had major problems. And then, on the defensive side, on the offensive side, I say, or you can just choose Shackley, because it's been 65 years. We haven't sent a contaminated product to market. Probably it's not going to happen. And John, I'm really close to home. I mentioned earlier, I've got my 4-year-old who was 1.5 pounds at birth, and he spent 105 days in the hospital. And we spent the first 2 years of life trying to figure out what was going to happen with him, because he was almost 2, and the doctor said they were ready to give him a failure to thrive diagnosis, which is basically we don't know what's happening anymore, and we can't treat it. And my wife was working in medical at the time, and she got the doctors to order a pallet of blood tests, and she called me, and I was actually sitting right here at my desk, and she said everything came back negative. They were looking for cystic fibrosis and leukemia and stuff like that. She said it all came back negative. That's good. The bad thing is that leads to basically the only diagnosis we can get is failure to thrive. And she said the only thing abnormal in his blood was that his ferritin count was 4, which is your blood iron. And I'm like, well, I know this one. I mean, I had this. And so that led us to, we had at-home nursing. I went upstairs, met with our nurse, and I said, my son is severely deficient in iron. Let's look at his diet. He was on an all liquid diet because he was having trouble chewing when he was approaching 2 years old. So we went and we did a nutritional analysis, discovered he was about 30% deficient across the board in his nutrients. And I put him on Shackley's liquid multivitamin because he couldn't really swallow correctly. And it was about a week and a half later, it was about 11 days later, he started walking. He couldn't really walk before. He had 5 therapists that he was seeing. He had a therapy session every single day of the week. And within 4 or 5 months, the last of the therapists said, we're done. He's his gross motor is fine. His fine motor is fine. His speech is fine. And it was all a nutritional deficiency. And so we sort of took that idea of weaponizing nutrition. So how do you weaponize nutrition when your kid's not eating anything? And, he had a G tube. So we're pushing food through the G tube. And he went from there to, we realized it was nutritionally deficient on a physician prescribed diet. So, again, I love doctors. My brother's a doctor. They're knowledgeable people. But if you want to be healthy, take your family's health into your own hands and learn this stuff. Because once we discovered my son had a nutritional deficiency, we were able to use the food as medicine, and got him back on track. And now he's, perfectly normal. He's down at the pool swimming right now. And he's a very normal 4-year-old.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, that's weaponizing it. I mean, that's just goes to show you how much nutrition matters. Right. It's just,
and we've been, I would say, I don't want to say off the deep end on, not letting our son eat unhealthy food, but when you're dealing with a kid who's 1.5 pounds at birth, my wedding ring here fit around his wrist, and you realize how fragile our bodies can be. We've told people, our son doesn't get sugary foods because every calorie that goes into him has to go into making him healthy. And, and so we took that a fairly extreme approach. As he's getting a little older and much, much healthier now, it's, he had an ice cream sandwich at one point. And after he had trouble sleeping from that, he decided, actually, true story, we were at my sister-in-law and brother-in-law's house, and we did a bonfire. So we bought a bag of marshmallows, and he had 3 marshmallows, and he had trouble sleeping that night. He said, "Daddy, I never want to eat a marshmallow again." And I said, "That is totally fine."
You gave him marshmallows? How dare you, Eli? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't believe you can't talk about marshmallows on this show. It's the whole truth.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, but that's been our policy, is to use food and nutrition to promote his health, because if he gets sick, it can be, it's getting less so now as he's getting older, but he could, we don't want him in the hospital and he's, as I said, I don't say this to condemn other parents and how they're parenting, but if I look at the average kid who's 4 years old, they've got a 1 in 3 chance of graduating high school with diabetes. And again, we know what causes diabetes. This is not an unknown thing. It's like saying, if you smoke cigarettes, we know it causes lung cancer. If you eat a bad diet, it is the cause of diabetes, of type 2 diabetes. So, it's sort of sad to see that we have a generation of kids that have now grown up in this and have medical issues because of it. And so again, it's not about condemning people, because I look at it, and I think you and I talked about this ahead of time. I said, when I see people with a grocery cart full of bad food, I look at them and I think they're not bad people, but they're where I was at one point, where you don't even accept understanding that food, what you eat, matters.
Yeah.
They're not a step one. And so if you go up and say, no, you should be eating all organic, and no, that's not going to work. They haven't even bought into this idea yet of what I eat becomes who I am. And so maybe I should start thinking about it. And then that should impact my decisions, whether it's small or big, whether it's at a restaurant one night and what I'm going to choose on the menu, or what I'm buying at the grocery store when I'm shopping for my family.
Yeah, we did talk about that. Yes, right. So certain people don't believe it, and I guess if you don't believe it, and this you said this, I'm stealing your thunder again. If you don't believe it, then you're not going to do it because you just don't think. Like even smoking cigarettes, as crazy as that may sound, you could smoke cigarettes, but if you really don't believe it's going to cause you cancer, you're going to keep doing it, right?
Yeah, and I use that as an example. Like if you think, well, this won't kill me, you'll keep on doing it. I don't think anyone who believes that smoking cigarettes is going to kill them will do it. I don't think that's the case. I think they have a deep-seated belief that somehow they're going to beat the odds on it.
I think you're right.
And so it's, I think it's the same with food. When I see parents, and they don't look happy about this, but I think they're buying foods that their kids are begging them for, and they're appeasing them, and they think, oh, I'm doing a good job with this. It's a lot. Oftentimes it's a matter that they just don't know. They don't know how this is actually working. They don't understand that high fructose corn syrup leads to elevated blood sugar, which leads to insulin, which leads, we've done a lousy job of educating people in society, and it takes a lot of empathy. You can't go cram this down people's throats, metaphorically speaking. It just takes empathy and education.
I listen, you and I are very similar. I totally agree with you. And I would tell anyone listening and the people watching, it's not your fault. I was that guy. I played basketball, baseball, football. If I wasn't doing that, I was running a marathon or doing triathlons or did an Ironman. I mean, or lifting weights. I was doing something, and so exercise was always a part of my life. I thought, getting back to the whole Gatorade thing, all jokes aside, I had no clue. Like, I watched TV, and I thought, and I grew up in a, what I would consider a conventional standard. I did eat Wonder Bread. Like my parents didn't do anything bad. They my mom, cooked healthy, but like we had some of that junk around. But I didn't know. I didn't get it. It didn't sync with me, and it wasn't until I started asking questions, and you get to a point like at a maturity level where I think you start to care. Like for your, in your case, like you wanted to be an Olympian, right? So it's like, hey, if I want to be an Olympian, like I have to read, I have to research, I have to really figure out what the heck I'm putting in my body. And for me, I ask questions. I have a buddy, Rob Mackey, brother. If you're out there, I love you. Thanks, because you're the dude that was walking around with the Manuka honey water with chia seeds, and everyone else had the Gatorade, Powerade drinks, and all they did was ask a question. That's all he did. There was Rob, and he had his drink, and it looked like sludge. My God, at the time, I'm like, what the hell is that? It's Manuka honey, and chia seeds with filtered water, with clean water. And all I did was ask. And he told me about it, and he said, "This is what chia seeds does. This is what you're drinking." I had a protein bar. I used to run around eating protein bars. He grabbed the wrapper. He didn't push it on me. He grabbed the wrapper. He goes, "John, you keep asking me, so I'm going to tell you." Okay, look at the back of the protein wrapper. Read it. I couldn't read it because I can't pronounce it. I can't even spell it. Z's, Y's, and propylene glycol and all that stuff. And it started to sink in. And it's interesting. It's like, how did I not ever understand what I was doing? I was just like in motion, just doing it and not even thinking about what I was doing. So then I looked up the ingredients, and he goes like, "John, look, those are chemicals. There's no nutrients in there." I looked it up, and most of the stuff in my protein bars were found in the chemical dictionary. And I'm a little nuts, so then I get extreme, and then I started researching and going crazy and reading, watching documentaries. But once I realized the truth, once I woke up as to what I was putting in my body, there's no going back. Because now I know anytime I look at a Gatorade, I'm throwing Gatorade under the bus. I don't care. I really don't. I don't care. Hate me, Gatorade. But and the protein bars too. I'm throwing those under the bus. You see that stuff? It's nothing but garbage. And it damages your body. And it's just, asking questions and just and getting some education.
John, it was a number of years ago. I was reading a book that was talking about some of the fallacies in nutrition, and honestly, the last 30, 35 years that was pushed on us by the food lobby, and they were pushing that sugar was a healthy deal. Now, that's not to say all sugars are bad. Okay, I had a mango. I swam MRM this morning, so it was a long workout for me, and I had a Shackley smoothie with mango in it. I threw some extra mango in it. The sugar in the mango is very different from the sugar in a Coca-Cola.
Right.
Okay.
I had my berries.
So anyway, I was reading this book, and it was talking about how high fructose corn syrup interacts with our body, and literally, I never have had a soda since. I lost my entire desire to drink sodas that day.
Yeah, I get it.
And it wasn't, it wasn't like I drank a lot of sodas. I mean, maybe a few times a month, but since that day, I look at a soda and I get physically repulsed. So a lot of people think, oh, you're always eating chia seeds and quinoa and stuff like that. No. It's like the more you research, the more your brain actually starts saying, hey, wait a second. Now I understand why I was fooling myself. I get a hit from the high fructose corn syrup, but now I understand why 2-3 hours later I've crashed. And then your brain just flips the switch and says, why the heck would I want to eat that?
Yeah, well, our bodies aren't designed to take in food that has been modified by man. It's the stuff that we strip. We take out. We take nutrition out of foods and we put other stuff in foods, and it's when we mess with it, we mess it up. And our bodies, when you put those foods, the processed foods, in your body, the best way I can describe it is your body does not know what's going on. It just doesn't understand what is happening. And then there's the mind-body connection. So what you put in your body, in your gut, goes to your brain because it's all connected. And that's, getting back to your point where kids acting kind of like nutty, that's not real food. We've messed with it. Mother Nature's food is perfect. The stuff, don't eat poisonous mushrooms if you're walking in the woods, but, the stuff that's, made to be in our body that we know works, whole foods, whole, fruit, stuff that just, vegetables, stuff that just grows off of the earth, that supports our body. So I'm always trying to inspire people to do that,
And that is such a great rule of thumb. The more I've learned about nutrition over the years, the more I've seen that if your basic rule is the closer it is to nature, and I don't mean, it's interesting, like flash frozen foods that you buy at Costco, organic flash frozen foods at Costco are actually much more nutrient dense than the fresh foods that most people will buy in a supermarket. So do your research, because those were actually frozen right off the vine. They were vine ripened and frozen, as opposed to things that sat in the truck for a week, while it was being transported 1,000 miles to get to your grocery store.
Right.
So the closer the rule of thumb I have is that in as much as possible, choose foods that are closer to what they are naturally. Vine ripened is always better than not vine ripened. Organic things are always better than non-organic. Fish that's been wild caught is going to be better than farm raised fish, actually by order of magnitude. That one's huge.
Well, that's a whole another podcast, baby.
Right.
That's a whole and I'm an animal lover, so that's a unhealthy thing to put in your body, but also you don't treat animals that way. But that's a whole
It's a nasty. That's another one.
Yeah.
Read about what we do, and suddenly you'll lose your appetite for farm fish.
Oh, my God.
But anyway, the closer you are to nature, the better everything seems to work for our bodies. I'm unaware, and I doubt that any disease exists that's caused by natural diets. But we know diseases come from unnatural diets, from these high fructose corn syrups, tons of processed sugars that we're putting in. We know the diseases come from this. So it's, as crazy as it sounds, it's actually quite simple. Just try to pick more natural stuff. When you look at supplementation, why do I recommend supplementation? Well, it's really hard in this day and age to get fruits, vegetables, things like that are as nutrient dense as they were even 30 or 40 years ago. So even if you're eating healthy, and we're also burning fewer calories, so we probably need to eat less in general. Most people are eating less, should be eating less than we were 50 years ago, just because of creature conveniences that we have now. So right. Supplementation is probably a necessity now where it wasn't necessarily 30 or 40 years ago. So people ask me all the time, well, if I eat all organic and I do all this, do I need to take a multivitamin? And I say, well, yeah. I mean, because we know that the nutrient value has gone down. We're over utilizing fields. It's everything about the food process system is reducing the nutrient load in the foods we're eating. So a lot of, and I say you supplement a good diet. You don't go to Burger King and then take a supplement to undo the damage.
Right.
Okay. So eat more natural, take a good vitamin, try to get rid of the bad stuff in your diet and test it. Try it out for a month and see if you feel better. See if you're sleeping better. See if your cognition's better. See if your kid's behavior is better. Try it.
100% money back guarantee. So, I mean, honestly, there's nothing to lose, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like it,
yep.
Shackley will give you your money back.
Yeah.
It's your health, so it's serious business. But you know what? I appreciate you coming on. This was awesome. I'm going to end it like this. I'm going to steal your thunder again, Eli. For those out there, look for an excuse to eat healthier and supplement better. And you can reverse many, many, many of the issues that you may be having, whether they're headaches or IBS problems. Health can be used as a food and supplements, quality supplements, Shackley supplements can be used as a weapon. Weaponize them. Like my man Eli Bremer, thank you for coming on the show. I would like to do this again, hopefully next time in New Jersey. I'm not going to fence against you, but thank you.
Sounds like a plan. I'll accept that invitation. Let's make it happen.
You got it. Until next time, my friends. Adios, amigos, and adios, amigas. All the love. See ya.
I hope you enjoyed the latest edition of the Hol Truth Podcast. If you don't want to miss a thing, please subscribe and like. Thank you for the support. All the love. Adios, amigos.